What's up, you guys? Joe Dobby here. It has been a while since I've sent a YouTube video and shown you a new deck profile, but we are at BT9 now. And the first deck I want to show you guys is a fun deck. I'm still working on trying to get it competitive, but for now it's just super duper fun. It's kind of like a real true zombie deck in Digimon for the first time, and we're going to be going over GranDracmon. It has been weeks, guys, but I will be pumping out more content for you. So if you do like and miss my deck profiles, please share this to other players, other people who want to get into Digimon, especially those who want to play purple. And don't forget to like and subscribe. But that said, we're going to dive right into the eggs. The first eggs are Sunomon and 4 copies of Demi-Meramon, just right there. So very straightforward, guys. We're familiar with Sunomon already. Once per turn, when you trash a card from your hand due to an effect, you actually get to draw an extra card. And Demi-Meramon on deletion, draw 1, trash 1. Now, in this specific deck, you are trashing things from your hand. That's why I wanted to keep the extra Sunomon. But the Demi-Meramons are mainly for the scatter mode engine that is in the deck as well, to kind of accelerate it and get to your pieces quickly. Next, guys, we're gonna run one of the key pieces in this deck. It's 4 copies of the new Dracmon from BT9. So this new Dracmon actually has an on-play effect that is pretty powerful. You reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you can trash 1 card with undead or dark animal in its traits, and then you add 1 undead or dark animal Digimon in its traits to your hand, and you bottom deck the rest. Now, its inheritable effect is absolutely busted, and I think it's really strong, and I think there's good. It's a good indicator of what's to come for purple in the future sets as well. So when attacking, this Digimon may Digivolve into a Digimon card with undead or dark animal in its traits from your trash, or its Digivolution cost. So the downside, or kind of like the balanced side actually, is that you have to pay the Digivolution cost. However, you are Digivolving when attacking. So any when Digivolving effects that the new Digimon that you Digivolved into may have will trigger. Any when attacking effects will trigger. Actually, no, just the Digivolution effects. Those are the ones that will mainly trigger because you declared attack before you actually became the Digimon. But that said, very powerful card, great searcher and accelerator of the deck's win condition. Next, guys, we're running 4 copies of the Gabumon here, the starter deck, and it's a draw 1, trash 1 when attacking. The reason why I'm going for this card more so than the draw 2, trash 1 on deletion Gabu is because sometimes, well, you don't want to get deleted, right? You're triggering the when attacking effects to Digivolve, so you really don't want to get deleted, so you're not going to get any benefit from that. The when attacking here is really just to cycle through your deck and potentially draw that level 6 Digimon that you're going to trash at the same time in order to Digivolve and trigger, for example, Sangloopmon's effect after this Gabu effect. So I'll show you what Sangloopmon does, but its inheritable effect is basically Dracmon's inheritable effect as well. Next, guys, we're running 4 copies of Gazimon. So in this OTK meta, you actually see a lot of people playing searchers like memory boosts. You also see with X antibody that they can get so much memory from out of nowhere, and I know that most of that memory gain will probably come from like Cool Boy and Memory Boost and Yuji's, but at the same time, the Dex Darugas, the Dorus of those decks will actually provide some memory gains as well. So the Gazimon stops that, and actually 2 Gazi on the board can spell doom for X anti, assuming they don't have the immediate outs to you, which is really good. Next, we're running 4 copies of Sangloopmon. So this was the Digimon with the same inheritable effect as Dracmon. Once again, you can Digivolve into an undead or dark animal from trash for paying its Digivolution cost when attacking. 5 cost a hard play, so it's kind of expensive. However, if you go second, sometimes you can just slam this card, go into Matadormon, which I'll show you later, and Matadormon actually allows you to trash a card when attacking, so you can resolve and Digivolve. So you can resolve Sangloopmon's effect even if you don't have anything in trash yet, which is pretty good. And the rest of the level 4s here, we got 4 copies of Dex Dorugamon. So when I first read this, I thought that it was pretty crappy in purple because you need like Dorugamon Evos. However, you actually get to trigger it if you digivolve from trash, like it's when digivolving effect. So when digivolving here, you may trash a card with Dex or Death X in its name or X antibody in its traits to gain a memory. So that 3-cost Evo becomes a 2-cost. You're facilitating trashing, for example, Dex Dorugoramon, which is the boss of this deck, one of the bosses of this deck, to gain a memory back, so it's much cheaper. And when digivolving, if this Digimon has Dorugamon in its traits or Digivolution cards, or it actually digivolved from trash, you get to resolve its effect, so blocker and retaliation, onto one of your Digimon, pretty much until the end of your opponent's turn. So you can give this blocker retal to a pretty big Digimon instead of Daruga, though most of the times I've found to give it to Dex Darugamon. And last of the level 4s here, we're running 4 copies of Eismon Scatter Mode. You can actually cut 1 copy of Eismon Scatter Mode to play a regular Eismon, which is fine. However, because I really think the when attacking effects are important in the deck, I decided to cut that and just make the scatters consistent so I can see them just as early and just slam them if I need to for that aggression. But it's a draw 3, trash 2 on deletion, so you are almost guaranteed, because I made this deck pretty consistently, you are almost guaranteed to see these pieces immediately in trash. Next, for the level 5s, we've got 4 copies of Matadormon. When attacking, you may trash a card in your hand with undead or dark animal in its traits to give the Digimon plus 3k DP for the turn. And on your turn, actually, when this Digimon would digivolve into a Digivolution card from into a Digimon card from trash, you can reduce the Digivolution cost by 1. So the Mega Evolutions from trash, like GranDracmon and Dex Dorugoramon, which you play in this deck, will be reduced by 1. In addition to that, this when attacking effect will stay on the Digimon stack, so you'll be giving these boss monsters that you've digivolved into plus 3k to their base DP, and I think that's super strong. Matadormon is the one you want to see in your hand, and this is the one you want to throw in the trash, because this also, much like the Dex Dorugamon, has when digivolved from trash. So once again, it can digivolve for 1 from a from a GranDracmon, but we don't really care about that. But when digivolving, you can do the same thing: trash a card with Death X, Dex, or X antibody to gain 1 memory. So the 4 cost becomes a 3 cost. Nice. And then when digivolving, if this is digivolved from trash, which is the main effect that we care about, you can actually delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. So it's very good at popping blockers, or popping, for example, an Imperial, like a Jogress target, Mastemon, Jogress target, Beelstarmon, you can delete like Gazimon so you can gain memory, etc. Or you can delete blockers from Beelstar. And in OTK decks, just being able to delete that extra body might prevent them from actually OTKing you, which is really good. Now into the Megas, and I thought, when I read this guy, GranDracmon, I thought he was super strong and super fun to play, so I had to give it a go. When digivolving, you may play 1 purple level 3 Digimon from your trash without paying its memory cost. On-play effects actually trigger from that, so you can play whatever you want. So in this case, you really want to play the Dracmon here, because it sets you up for a free Digivolution, because GranDracmon's end of attack effect here is you may digivolve one of your Digimon into a Digimon card with undead or dark animal in its traits from your trash without paying its memory cost. So you would go into GranDracmon, right? I'll actually show you the combo right now before we go into the other pieces, just so you get familiar with it. So effectively, what you're gonna be seeing here, let me give you guys an example. So let's say you've got this stack. Let's say you've got this stack going. Let's say you've got a Sangloopmon, a Matadormon on your turn. Matadormon will swing, and then, for example, you don't have a rookie, you're gonna trash the Dracmon, and then the Sangloopmon will trigger digivolving into GranDracmon off the swing. It'll get the 3k DP from Matadormon, so it'll be a 15k swing. However, after you have to resolve its when digivolving effects, so you'll be playing Dracmon from trash, and then you resolve. You look at the top 3. Let's say my top 3 were Dex Dorugamon, Dex Dorugamon, right? So I would probably add Dex Dorgray to my hand, I'd probably trash a Dex Daruga and bottom deck the next card. Why? Because at the end of GranDracmon's attack, you can actually Digivolve the Dracmon that you played into a Dex Daruga. And then you can trash Dex Darugray from your hand here in order to resolve Dex Daruga's effect, giving him retaliation and blocker. So now you're protecting your GranDrac, and next turn, when GranDrac swings, it can Digivolve into Dex Darugray for free at the end of the attack, and then you resolve that, Dex Darugray swings, GranDrac will swing, and then you can actually, well, I mean, not GranDrac, Dex Darugray will swing, and then the Drac effect will actually Digivolve him into Dex Dorugoramon. And then this is kind of like the bread and butter. This is how you get to your megas really fast. But yeah, pretty much that is one of the key combos in this deck. And you get there very quickly. This deck is actually really, really consistent. However, compared to the OTKs of the meta, where they're hard playing memory boost and all it takes is one stack in raising to pretty much end you, it becomes very, very difficult. There are ways to stop that though, which I've added in the deck, and I'm going to show you how I actually try to address that. But for now, this deck is still a competitive work in progress. But I would say that this is complete for casual. Dex Dorugoramon is the second boss. It's 5 cost to Evo, which is why Matadormon is super good. When Digivolving, if this Digimon has Dorugoramon in its Digivolution cards or Digivolved from trash, you get to delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest level. So in OTK, if their lowest level is their main Digimon, for example, a Grandis Coagamon, that Digimon is gone. And then they have to rebuild. And then as they're rebuilding, hopefully you've you provided the aggression, enough aggression to just close out the game from there. However, on deletion, Dex Dorugoramon actually has a really good effect here. You may play one purple or black level 3 Digimon card from your trash without paying its memory cost. If you have 5 or more cards with Dex or Death X in its name in your trash, you can play a Death Xmon from trash without paying its cost instead, which is really powerful because, as you guys know, Death Xmon is such a huge Digimon to have the earlier you see him, because if your opponent can't deal with it, every single turn at the end of their turn, they're losing the Digimon, I think, with the lowest play cost, right? So in this specific deck, I actually don't have Death Xmon because I don't have it yet, but I'll show you what cards to replace to add 3 copies of Death X, because you gotta see that card. But that said, we're actually running 3 copies of Dex Daruga. Next, we're running 2 copies of Mat, just a very good way to return cards from trash and set your memory up, which is really good. Again, we're running 3 copies of Analog Youth, just to search for my pieces and also trash the Digimon that need to be trashed, like the Dexes, the Dex Digimon and GranDracmon are pretty much your trash pieces, so you get there as quick as you can, right? And in addition to that, you know, if you are able to actually trigger the blocker Retal and then end your turn going in a Dex Daruga, you can pretty much just block with Retal or just block, and then if the Digimon dies, you can totally just suspend Analog Youths and end your opponent's turn, which is pretty big, especially against Grandis. If you can end their turn, all they'll do is trigger the piercing, and then you can come back next turn and hopefully have a means to address that. Now we're going into the options. So we're running 3 copies of Metal Impulse, and this is kind of like your only answer to your opponent's board state besides Retaliation, and you pretty much don't really want to touch Retaliation unless you're blocking, so this is your only answer. Metal Impulse is a really good card because it allows you to trash the top 3 cards in your hand, or trash 3 cards in your hand, up to 3, and then for each card trashed, you trigger D-Digivolve 1 on one of your opponent's Digimon. So not one Digimon D-Digivolve 3, you can D-Digivolve 1 on 3 different Digimon. You can resolve that one at a time, which is really good. Or you can do D-Digivolve 2 on one Digimon and then D-Digivolve 1 on another Digimon. And that could be the option. The ability to choose can be pretty crucial, which is really good. In addition to that, at the end of that effect, it actually deletes a Digimon that's level 4 or less. So if you can D-Digivolve a Digimon enough times, you can actually delete that Digimon, which is really good. And it activates from security, which I think is really, really powerful. Only 6 cost as well, eh? 6 cost is really good. And lastly, we're running 2 copies of Calling from Darkness just to pop the Dex Dorugoramon and potentially play the Death X, play a level 3 Digimon, etc. And 1 copy of Emergency Program Shutdown, because if you play this at the right time, you can actually stop your opponents from playing the X antibody option. And if you do that, then they have to wait a turn, right? Which is really good. But in this scenario, guys, you're actually gonna substitute, I want to say, you're gonna want to substitute here a Metal Impulse and Emergency Program for 2 copies of Death Xmon. One thing you can do too is cut a scatter mode. Cut a scatter mode and play 3 Death Xmon. Personally, I will start testing with only 2 Death Xmon and 3 Metal Impulse, but these 3 cards should be invested into a Death Xmon because it's really, really powerful. And at that point, if you're playing 3, you can substitute 1 GranDracmon for another Dex Dorugoromon, so that can be your Digivolution target instead of the GranDrac. Depending on the matchup, you can choose whether GranDrac is the play or another Digimon is the play. So that said, guys, that is actually the deck here. Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you like the video, please don't hesitate to give me a subscribe. I would really appreciate it because I want to start showing up on people's feeds so they can start watching my videos. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. See you guys in the next video, which I will release very, very soon. Bye.